Hello, people of the world watching car reviews on the internet. Welcome to the 2024 Volkswagen Jetta SEL. The Jetta is now the most affordable vehicle that VW sells in America. So today I'm gonna get up in the air, or nerd out in the tech specs, see how it's constructed and why this thing is so cheap, and then go give it the beans. All right, Jetta, let's see what you got. That's what I call a massive trunk. Look at the size of this spare tire well. That's an interesting exhaust routing. Muffler manufactured by Tenneco, Hancho, and Mexico. Stalactites you see right there is the chassis wax and why VWs are so corrosion resistant. Out back, the Jetta SEL utilizes an all-steel in construction torsion beam style rear suspension. What's crazy though is just the GLI model gets its own multi-link rear suspension, making it that much more special. A coil spring, the style definitely saves money. Dampers are brought to you by Sox. Has Sox dampers, sweet. Lots of plastic underbody cladding, no hairy cardboard. The 7th generation of the Jetta, codenamed A7, is built on VW's MQB platform, and this SEL model you see here weighs in at 3,036 pounds. Whoa, the entire rear torsion beam has a plastic aero shield on it. To protect it from rock chips is a sticker. Little steel chassis brace. Also Tenneco. It's got a massive resonator in the middle. Oh, nice exhaust actually. Not cheap quality. Mid pipe measures in 60 millimeter in diameter piping, which is like 2.36 inches. As far as the transmission goes, you can still get a 6-speed manual on the sport model of the Jetta as well as the GLI. Both engines come with a manual transmission if you want. This one is paired with the optional Aigeen AW F8F35 traditional 8-speed automatic transmission. Yes, I said Aigeen because this is a Toyota-sourced automatic transmission with a maximum torque input rating of 350 Newton meters or 260 pound-feet. Also has a final drive ratio of 2.56. It's a little bit tight up there. It'd be better if all this plastic was out of the way. I wonder if you could run a drive shaft. Fuel tank's in the way. Up front, you get an all-steel in construction McPherson strut style suspension. VW chose a cast iron knuckle over aluminum, which also saves cost. Again, paired with a set of those Sox coilover dampers. Front anti-sway bar. Wow, that's a crazy axle. Look how beefy the axle is on this thing. Measures in at 23 millimeter in diameter. Oh yeah, that's stout right there. Torx bit metal hardware. There's no quick access for maintenance though. You gotta remove this to clean under it when you do your oil change, as you should. All right, time for the braking test. No one behind me. Ready? Okay. Wow! Holy shit! Way better than I thought it was going to. Those tires are loud. Had a lot of nosedive to it, but the stopping distance was on point. That braking was just made possible thanks to a single piston floating caliper and a 287 millimeter or 11.3 inch front rotor. The wheels on the SEL there are 17x7 with a positive 46 millimeter offset alloy wrapped in a 205/55 Nexen Farah tire. And Farah all-7. Definitely where they're saving some money is in the tire department and the wheels. They're gloss black, machined face, and manufactured in China. But where they didn't cut cost is in the lug stud department. Each one of these says Volkswagen on the cap. Well, that's nice. They give you a little access door to remove to change headlight bulbs. I like that. Plastic, easy to clean inner fender liner. Well, that's a little bit of a double entendre. You got fogged plastic for this LED bumper light. I'm not gonna call it a fog light. A little active aero shutters in front of the AC condenser and radiator. VW doesn't play around with corrosion. Like I said, you can see it's got the texturized coating under the paint layer, and also it's got that chassis wax dripping out of the pinch weld here. That is by far the most heavy duty hairy cardboard I've ever felt. It's like sandpaper wool. Out back, you get another single piston floating caliper with a 10.7 inch or 272 millimeter rotor. The wheel and tire, same size as you get up front. In the name of science, I am now going to give this thing the beans, but first, assessment of bolstering. Yeah, it's actually got a little bit of bolstering to it. I just pulled my hair, that kind of hurt. The color combo on the outside might be a little rental car bland, but on the interior, these seats are nice. Not only are the seats heated, but they're also ventilated too. The driver's seat is memory and power adjustable. The steering wheel is also heated. As far as drive modes go, because this is the SEL model, it does have drive modes, just like you get in a GLI. And I can go from eco to normal, to sport, and to custom, and then where you can go into custom, and then you can configure your steering, drivetrain, ACC, and your climate control. And on top of that, whatever mode you had it in last time you drove it, after you shut the vehicle off, it stays in that mode for you, which is a nice touch. As far as traction control goes, you tap on the side where it says car, it brings up your vehicle status and tells you to drive safely, and then you hit it again. You can go into your ESC and disable ASR. Defeats some robots. You can bring it down to drive or tap it down again, which puts it into sport mode, or move it over to the right and you can shift with it sequentially. However, there are no flappy paddles in the back of the steering wheel. All right, give this thing a little assistance and let it eat. Ready? Okay, go. Oh, chirp the tires and then it chirps second. There's still some traction control. Wow, gives a little surge of torque when it grabs a gear. That's already good enough. This little EA211 is no joke. It's a lot quicker than I thought it would be. I think there's sandbagging on the power figures. Popping the hood. That's a nice hood popper. Oh, that's a nice hood lever too. That's a heavy hood though. What is this thing? That is crazy. A little rubber grip, but look at that. It's got some bounce to it. Simple but robust. Plastic handle so you don't burn your fingertip. Underneath the hood of this 2024 Volkswagen Jetta is the EA211 Evo, which is a 1.5 liter dual overhead cam turbocharged 4-cylinder that produces 158 horsepower at 5,500 RPM and 184 pound-feet of torque at 1,750 RPM. Digging a little bit deeper on this EA211 Evo, this is a 1,498cc all aluminum engine with APS coated liners, undersquared at 74.5 by 85.9 millimeter bore and stroke, with an 11.5 to 1 compression ratio. This also does have cylinder deactivation where it can drop down to 2 cylinders to help save on fuel. So you got your air box right here that feeds the air into that variable geometry turbo, and then it comes across the charge pipe into a water to air charge cooler, which is mounted just underneath this plastic intake manifold. ECU is sandwiched between the fuse box and the battery. This also does have variable valve timing in twin cooling loops to separate the hot and the cold cooling systems. You can see the turbo is rear facing in the engine bay, but at least it's not stuffed up underneath a wiper cowl and difficult to access like some past VW models I've worked on. A very Volkswagen looking coolant expansion chamber. An aluminium valve cover where underneath lies a timing belt, not a timing chain. But if you look down the front of the engine here, the serpentine belt only goes around the alternator, and underneath it the AC compressor and the tensioner and crank pulley. And that is because this has an electrically driven water pump as well as electric power steering. All right, time to take it for a rip. Sport mode, engage. I don't think there's any fake sound generation, but this does have some decent induction noise coming into the cabin. Handling wise, yeah, it's a little floaty boaty. It's not terrible, but I swear tires on this car would make a massive difference. I can't put all the blame or credit of this thing's handling capabilities or lack thereof on the fact that it's got this torsion beam rear suspension, because of the fact that it definitely saved some money in the tire department. That's for sure. That would probably go a long way with improving handling. But for the base car, I can't deny the fact that I have fun ripping an affordable little car more so than I do an expensive exotic car. Performance upgrades would go a long way on the sport model or any of the base Jetta lineup, that's for sure. I will say that the suspension in this car is super comfortable, and for a daily driver, that's what people are looking for. It's an extremely comfortable car to cruise around in. Despite their best efforts to cut cost on the Jetta, it doesn't feel like a cheap economy rental car. It feels like it has underpinnings of still being a quality vehicle. Give this manual mode a try. It's a little bit of a delay on the shifts. It's not bad. It doesn't give that little extra surge of torque like it did when I did a hard launch on this thing from a dead stop. It's nice that they programmed that into it. Actually, leaving it in manual mode in sport, it's got good torque in the mid-lower end of the power band. It does start to fall off towards redline. There's really no benefit to winding it out. But if you just roll into that throttle, it does have this little baby shove, a little whiff of torque. Obviously, I'm gonna say this as a car enthusiast, if there's a manual transmission available on a car, you should always go for it. And especially with this Jetta, I feel it would add an extra layer of fun to driving this thing, especially with this engine. Are you a backup camera? No, it's underneath. Oh, that's a shame. I like it when the emblem flips up and the camera's in there. I guess that's how they save cost on the Jetta though. The trunk on this thing's so huge, you might accidentally get squatters moving into it. It is an absolute myth that you need an SUV or a crossover to haul a bunch of stuff, because you could haul a ton of ass in this thing. I couldn't resist, I had to say that. Little ejecto seat trigger. The picture looks like an Audi TT kind of. Interesting. It's actually a pretty roomy back seat in here. The seat itself looks really good. It's got lots of contours and shapes and design to it. Contrast stitching. What? The rear seats are heated on this thing. It's a $30,000 car with heated rear seats. I was not expecting that at all. They give you heated seats, but they don't give you any way to charge anything back here. There's no USB-C or USB or nothing. Not even an old school cigarette lighter. It's rubber. The inside of the cup holder area is squishy rubber. Weird. I mean, yeah, the whole door card is plastic, even the brown portion right here. It has a tweeter in it though for the Beats audio. But like, not every car has to have suede and possum gooch fur to make it feel fancy. The map light reminds me of the tape they used to put on documents when you're little and you go to the hospital. It has the little lines in the tape. I don't know why, weird analogy. They're incandescent. Oh, the shade for the sunroof is translucent. Oh, the rear package shelf is plastic. Even though there's some cheap materials used in here, it doesn't look like a cheap car's interior. And just because of the styling and the way that VW does it, I feel like this is gonna age well in here. The front door cards are actually padded and contrast stitched, and this is an interesting looking wood grain. It's like a cross between a brushed metal and gray wood. It might just be a hard plastic door card, but VW puts a lot of effort into making it not look cheap, and that's why I think these cars age well. It also has heated mirrors, apparently with built-in telepathy, so it can communicate with other autonomous robot cars. Cup holders and a slot for a phone. It makes it look like a drunk robot face. The steering wheel is also flat bottom. Selection, what does this do? Digital cockpit? Driving data? Whoa, what is this? I didn't even know it had this. You can tell it's designed to have also a manual. Speed? So it changes the layout in your gauge cluster. Also, you can view your driving data. It's got a little Jetta. There's a little menu in the center for your driving data. Well, that's an Easter egg. The radar cruise control shows a Golf instead of a Jetta. There's a little traditional analog gauge on the side for the fuel, as well as a water temp, wireless charge area, 2 USB-Cs. It's areas like this that most manufacturers don't even pay attention to styling, but this, just looking at it alone, you would be able to tell that you're in a VW by the little vents that they have up there. Oh, that's nice. A little satisfying pop to the sunglass holder. It's got a little texture Lego grid pattern. You could probably actually stick Legos to that. And it's not nearly as cheap feeling as a lot of vehicles that cost twice as much as this. Little center armrest. Whoa, that's white on the inside. Weird. That's just going above and beyond. They didn't have to make this a contrasting color with a matching pad in the bottom. As far as safety features and tech goes, has a bunch of friendly robot assists in here to help keep you safe. One downside about the infotainment system is the screen is all glossy, so it definitely shows your fingerprints when you're touching it. I do like that they give you a physical knob for volume as well as tuning stations. While you can use the navigation on your phone with Fruit and Robot compatibility, the one thing that I like about this is that you can view the navigation in your gauge cluster, and it gives it more of a high-end feel inside the car. I honestly had no idea that Beats did car audio, and the Beats audio system in here sounds great at lower levels. When you crank it all the way up, it underperformed what I was expecting from something that has the Beats audio name, but it sounds crisp and clean and does have good bass in the mid-range to lower levels. Considering this is essentially still the base model vehicle that starts out at $21,000 just with some sprinkling of tech and interior upgrades, is extremely good value for the money. And this with a 6-speed manual, considering the performance you get out of this thing, the fact that it's not a hybrid nor is it a diesel, the fuel economy is incredible. Probably one of the best vehicles I've reviewed that's non-hybrid or diesel or EV. It's sad that crossovers and SUVs dominate the market because cars have gotten phenomenally good over the past couple of years, and people should pay more attention to them. It's so much better to drive than a crossover or SUV on the road. I'm glad that VW at least still makes the Jetta.
It is now time to give the Jetta some scores, starting with the bean score, the assessment of the feeling you get in your gut when you give it the beans. And it earns a rating of, hear that bird? He's pissed. He's like full automatic. Tweet, tweet, brrr. 3-round burst bird. Followed by the cookie score. And this fully loaded SEL model at $30,000 gets a rating of, it's the most expensive version of the most affordable VW that they make, and it's still not that bad if you look at the average price of a new car today. $30,000 is like 10 years ago's $15,000. Next is the wrench score, the assessment of ease of maintenance, and it earned a rating of. Followed by squid score, the assessment of handling, and it earned a rating of. Lastly is the penguin score, the assessment on how much I personally like a vehicle, and the Jetta gets a rating of. Obviously, if it was a sport with a manual or a GLI, it would have been a higher rating, but I get what I get when it comes to reviewing cars. I don't really have a lot of say in what comes my way. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity and hope you guys enjoyed this review. I'll see you soon with another. Bye.